right, so as we promised, we'll get the latest now regarding the situation in Ukraine. We cross live now to SABC News correspondent Giles Gibson, who is in Moscow. Giles, a very good afternoon or evening to you indeed. Thanks for joining us on the program. What's the latest from Moscow? In particular, if we're looking at the United States, for example, indicating it's contributing about $1 billion towards security in Ukraine. What's the latest on the ground there?
Well, the latest is that we're hearing is that Ukrainian and Russian officials are now actually meeting for talks in a city just on the Ukrainian-Belarusian border. Throughout the day, we'd heard from the Russian side that they had a delegation inside Belarus waiting to hear from the Ukrainians. They even issued a deadline saying that after that point they would not be meeting. That deadline passed without any word from the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians had actually been saying through their president Volodymyr Zelensky that they were not prepared to meet in Belarus because, as they put it, Belarus is, quotes, complicit in this invasion. For example, saying that they've seen missiles launched out of Belarus into Ukrainian territory. So that was the situation throughout much of the day. And then suddenly we heard from Volodymyr Zelensky saying that he was prepared to send a delegation, as he put it, north to the Ukrainian-Belarusian border. Those talks, we believe, have now kicked off, and we are really waiting to see what comes out of it. So just an extraordinary turn of events, really, an extraordinary 180. After an entire day of the Ukrainians refusing to meet, they have now said they will sit down with Russian officials.
Apologies there, Giles. I did not get much of what you said in the beginning, but I did get that you say that that meeting is currently underway. Is there any sense on the ground at this stage that this meeting could perhaps, change what we're seeing currently on the ground, with those, of course, on the ground, the ones who are suffering the most in terms of what is taking place? Could this change what we're seeing taking place?
Well, this is the first time that we've seen Ukrainian and Russian officials actually agreeing to sit down and hold talks since Thursday, when Vladimir Putin, in this dawn address to the nation, to the Russian people, announced that he was sending Russian troops into Ukraine. So this is certainly just a really significant development. But of course, with Ukrainian cities under siege from Russian troops, with all of these reports over the course of the last few days of explosions and gunfire and Russian columns moving across the border into Ukraine, we'll have to see how these talks play out, if some sort of ceasefire perhaps can be brokered. So that's really what we're watching here in Moscow, to see what Russian officials and Ukrainian officials say once those talks wrap up.
And are the two leaders willing to attend that meeting?
What we know is that Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he is sending a delegation. He didn't explicitly say that he was not going to be attending those talks, but I think from the fact that he used that word delegation suggests that he is not personally attending these talks. He's sending some of his top officials, some of his top diplomats instead. We do know from the Russian side, they've said that they have sent foreign and defense ministry officials into Belarus to speak to the Ukrainians. So they've been very clear that Russian President Vladimir Putin is not attending these in person. So at this stage, it looks like you'll have senior diplomats, senior defense officials meeting there in Belarus on the border between Ukraine and Belarus, and we'll have to see what comes out of them.
Yeah, any word yet? We know that the United Nations Security Council convening a meeting today for a procedural vote that will call for an emergency session of the UN General Assembly. Any word from Russia about that?
Well, we've had Russian President Vladimir Putin coming on state TV here in Russia as his diplomats, as his defense officials are sitting down with Ukrainian officials in that town, that city on the border between Belarus and Ukraine. He is also saying that he is instructing his military to put their nuclear deterrent on high alert. We saw Vladimir Putin appearing on state-controlled TV here in Russia. He had his defense minister alongside him wearing combat fatigues, and we saw him giving that order to his defense minister, as well as the chief of the general staff of the Russian military, to put the nuclear deterrent on high alert. So on the one hand, you have talks, you have some hope for some sort of diplomatic solution here. On the other hand, you have Vladimir Putin putting his nuclear deterrent on high alert. So very mixed messages coming out of the Kremlin right now.
All right, Giles Gibson, thank you very much indeed for joining us live from Moscow on the latest on the ground there. Thanks indeed for your time.